Welcome to Monday, June 23rd, 2025, your Day Weather Podcast, brought to you by ConverseCountyTourism.com. Feel the energy at Converse County. Explore Douglas's Railroad Heritage, Ayers Natural Bridge, and the Jackalope Legend. Glen Rock boasts scenic trails, dinosaur history, and small town charm. Plan your visit at ConverseCountyTourism.com. Just insane weather if we go back to late last week than what we saw over the weekend. We had heat, very hot conditions, and the lizards wanted to come out, as you see there in Colorado Springs. We had deadly tornado activity across North Dakota and the upper Midwest with a lot of severe weather. Then, as we talked about, the threat of snow did come to fruition across parts of the northern Rockies, as you'll see here in a minute. For the first full weekend of summer, I don't know how you could have more variety of weather across the lower 48 than we saw. It was just crazy. Now the front is through. Now we're just going to be cooler. Temperatures will be down considerably from where they were. A lot of you kind of shivered yesterday, depending on where you are. But now the cooler air is spreading through the region. We will have some scattered shower and thunderstorm activity today, but most of the severe threat will be shifting off to the east. But tomorrow, we're going to have what we call the Day 2 severe weather scenario. We'll talk about that in a minute. Day 2 means the second day after a cold front. That is kind of a classic scenario that we see in the western high plains. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Generally speaking, temperatures will start to crawl back up after being very cool today in many areas, but it will be a slow warming trend, throttled back a bit because we'll have that subtropical or that early push of monsoonal moisture coming up from the south-southwest. And that's going to basically get us into a thunderstorm cycle, a daily thunderstorm cycle here for the week and into the weekend, mainly east of the divide. For folks west of the divide, not a lot going on except down in New Mexico, getting over on the divide there, and then into eastern areas of Arizona, you're going to have some thunderstorm chances. Now, a lot of you did see some smoke Saturday morning. A plume of smoke came through the region, went across parts of the Front Range of Colorado and Wyoming into western Nebraska. The way it looked like the smoke was coming in from the northeast. A lot of folks thought it was Canadian smoke. Well, it wasn't Canadian smoke. If we look at the fire map, we've got some bigger fires in southwest Utah and down here into far southern Arizona, southwest New Mexico, northern Mexico here. The winds aloft ahead of the system were coming up this way, not coming from Canada. It was just the right setup to bring the smoke plumes through. But before the smoke plumes and before the front, a beautiful shot here in the Black Hills of South Dakota. But then things started to get going, and we saw a wide variety of weather in terms of clouds, a very chaotic scene, as you'll see here in a minute, when you put it all together. The Bighorn Basin of Wyoming, western Montana, eastern Idaho, saw a heck of a front get pushed through here over the weekend, bringing rain, mountain snow, and a wide variety of clouds. Here's a great time lapse from the Worland area that just shows the process of the different cloud layers, the different movements and the directions of clouds before, then after the front. And then you can see clearing skies took place once the front made it all the way through. Wow. Thanks for sending that in, Nicholas. A really great example of what a lot of you experienced this weekend. And there we go. Cook City, Montana, complete with somebody taking a selfie right here. This was Sunday morning, Cook City, Montana, with snow accumulated on the rooftops. Well, here's the winter. Hidden Lake Trailhead in Glacier National Park. That was a screenshot from early Sunday morning. Now, the snow, as you can see, was still falling. Very, very impressive. And then Togety Pass, Sunday morning, snow on Togety Pass. And the other mountains in northern and northwestern Wyoming experiencing some snow. This is from the Cody Bowl at the Jackson Hole ski area Sunday morning as well. And yes, it snowed enough to close Beartooth Pass. June 22nd, road closed due to winter conditions. Then, as the front migrated east, we now go into Sunday. And Sunday, we saw a line of a couple of lines of strong to severe thunderstorms break out over eastern Wyoming, parts of northeastern Colorado, and the panhandle of Nebraska. The front arriving in the afternoon, the warmest time of the day, and that's going to set things off, and it really did. Showers and thunderstorms boiled up and came together. And I did get a couple of folks who made remarks that they were seeing these thin lines on the radar screen. As you can see right here, this is what's called an outflow boundary. These show up on radar, especially if you're close to a radar site. When a thunderstorm creates a downdraft or when it collapses or dissipates, air falls out of the thunderstorm to the ground and spreads out. It's like dropping a bucket of water on the ground. As soon as that water hits the ground, it spreads out, and it will spread out in a 360-degree radius, and that can cause very strong wind gusts. And also what happens is as the wind gust comes through, as that air hits the ground and spreads out, it throws dust particles, leaves, small animals, no, not small animals, but it puts debris up. And the radar, the very sensitive radar, can see not only debris, but the change in air density because the air in the outflow, we call this outflow boundaries, is colder. This particular outflow boundary acts like a front. Most of them do, but if the conditions are right, they will help initiate thunderstorms because the outflow pushes the air up above it. And so outflow boundaries then can help generate other thunderstorms by pushing the air up. And that's exactly what happened. We had a bunch of thunderstorms form right here and then come through later after these thunderstorms developed and collapsed and pushed that outflow boundary through. When you see these outflow boundaries, expect a gust of wind, a change in wind direction, and a drop in temperature. Beautiful shot there. And now we'll put all of this in motion as Jan has another one of his famous time lapses. And boy, a lot going on here. Like that video we showed you up in the Warland area. You can see different wind directions at different levels. Then you can see the updraft forming at the base of the clouds. And look at all that turbulence there at the bottom. And then the sun peeking on through. Boy, talk about a big weather maker this weekend in a lot of different scenarios across the lower 48 and especially the western United States. The satellite photo this morning shows the upper low. The main upper low is up over North Dakota. Then you can see the weather here associated with it. You see this little patch of cloudiness? It doesn't look like much, but part of the trough is going to be left behind and is going to sit in the Great Basin. And this is an important feature right here. Doesn't look like much, but an important feature nonetheless as we see the week unfold. So here's that piece of low pressure holding back over the Great Basin. There's the main low up into south central Canada. Here's the big heat dome that caused all the headlines for the massive heat. And it is very, very hot and humid on the eastern side of the country. But as we have been highlighting, we need to pay attention to these wind barbs as these wind directions are lining up to bring subtropical moisture out of Mexico northward into the region. Look at these temperature anomalies as of 6 a.m. this morning and then by 3 o'clock this afternoon. A pretty cool look to the western half of the United States here to start the first full week of official summer. This is where we're expecting the severe weather to be today. More out to the east from the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest, but we will have some strong thunderstorms back across eastern Nebraska, Kansas, and into southeastern areas of Colorado. But there will be in this light shaded green area some scattered shower and thunderstorm activity and some activity over the Sierra as that upper level low sits there. But tomorrow we have what's called the day 2 scenario. What does that mean? What it means is the second day after a cold front, there's a higher likelihood of severe weather along the Front Range and Eastern Plains. Now, I'm going to sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but this goes back to when I was in college and studying meteorology, and basically we didn't have a lot of the complicated computer models we have now. We had computer models then. They were just kind of coming into their own. But you used a lot of techniques that's called an analog technique, which is you try to understand patterns. And the day 2 pattern is something that I use all the time, and you can use if you don't have computer models, if you don't have access to your smartphone or a computer. In the summer, late spring and summer, when a cold front moves through the Rockies and high plains of decent magnitude, it's going to, on the second day, after the passage. Now, the first day, the passage, we won't call the first day the passage. We'll call that day 0. So day 0 was yesterday. Day 1 is today. Day 2 is tomorrow. So this is day 1. Along the frontal boundary, there'll be severe weather and strong thunderstorms. We'll have a little bit of moisture creeping back along the front range that will cause some scattered showers and thunderstorms. But it's day 2. Now, where does the day 2 scenario come from? Well, this is a very famous meteorologist who I just found out this morning passed away in January, but this guy was kind of a legend. Doswell worked for the National Weather Service, went on to do other things. This is kind of a pioneer in storm chasing as well, but his expertise was thunderstorms, severe weather, and supercells, and he came up with basically the day 2 scenario. This is really true for Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, western areas of Kansas, western Nebraska, the panhandles, eastern New Mexico, this area east of the divide. The second day, you're going to get severe weather, and there it is. So this is the Storm Prediction Center for the severe weather outlook for Tuesday. So there's going to be an elevated risk for some nastiness in that yellow and dark green area right there. So you don't need the Storm Prediction Center or a computer model. Day 2, after the frontal passage, you're going to get severe weather. And there's good physical reasons for it. The wind direction changes, and you start to see southeast flow coming in, pushing that high humidity air coming through. And usually there's some type of low pressure system left behind after the frontal passage, just like we see in the Great Basin, to set up that scenario. And you can see the CAPE forecast, or convective available potential energy, for tomorrow afternoon, and you can see where the severe weather is going to be, and there it is for tomorrow. As we get into Wednesday, it'll be another active day, especially in those dark green areas. So we'll have to deal with some strong to severe thunderstorms, especially Tuesday and Wednesday in the region, and you can see the feed of moisture coming up out of Mexico as well, aiding and abetting the severe weather scenario. By Wednesday of next week, we don't see much change. The high pressure ridge is in the east, the trough is in the Great Basin, and we continue to have the funneling of subtropical moisture coming up into here. So basically, every day this week and into the weekend, this is for Saturday, the same basic premise is there. Now, the systems are weaker, but we still have that flow. So right on into the weekend, we're going to see active shower and thunderstorm activity. And then we'll kind of see what happens as we get into that 4th of July weekend, the weekend after this one. If we put together the 7-day precipitation forecast, now keep in mind, the models don't do great with thunderstorms, but you can see where the darker green, blue, yellow, and red colors are is where the more heavier concentration of showers and thunderstorms are going to be. And you can see this deeper plume of moisture that's coming up into here. Now keep in mind this axis may be a little more east, it may be a little bit more west, but parts of south central and eastern New Mexico, get ready. You're going to get a lot of rain. Last week we had some heavy rain and flooding in Ruidoso, and that's going to be an area that we'll need to keep an eye on. Now, parts of the southwest United States under some pretty significant drought conditions, this is going to help, but it could be too much too quickly in some areas. Something to monitor for you folks in the land of enchantment. Now, the Four Corners area is not showing much thunderstorm activity. You'll probably see more there than the model is showing, but certainly the concentration is going to be in this arch, that ring of fire around the high in the east and the low back here in the basin. Have yourself a great Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.